What is going on, guys? It is Code Red here. Welcome to Advanced Spit Coding for 1.16 episode 5. I got an awesome Halloween special for y'all, and we're gonna be going over actually how to code Herobrine. Now, obviously, there's a million different ways you can go about coding Herobrine, but the main method that I wanted to do is actually try to scare the players. And what I mean by scare players is actually have a sort of like a pop-up scare, and it plays some scary noises and has like a really cool effect to it. So without further ado, I'm gonna show you guys the actual plugin itself. Go ahead and take off my hat real quick so I can see better. So what happens is at nighttime, there is a chance every minute that Herobrine will spawn. It won't spawn for everybody, it will only spawn for one random person. So really how the plugin works is every single minute it goes and picks a random person, and if that person is in the night, then it will spawn for them. So if I go into the night mode, we'll see it happen. Actually, before I go to night mode, let's go ahead and turn on my sound so y'all can hear it. And I will say that because this is a tutorial video, I do have it spawning every 15 seconds, just so I don't have to wait a whole minute and then edit that whole minute in later my video editor. But time night, and here we go. All right, I hope that didn't scare you too bad. I tried my best to make it as scary as possible, and now I'm going to talk through the next spawning of it to show you guys how it actually works. So if I go into third person, oh my god, it gets real dark. You'll see that I get the potion of blindness, so I can't really see. You also see that I've slowed down. I did not slow down on purpose. The plugin actually makes me slow down, and now that I'm running and moving fast, Herobrine will still slow me down and spawn a little further away. So it doesn't really matter how fast you go. Obviously, if you're running speed 10, we can kind of code it a little better and make it multiply by your speed. But if we're moving fast, it'll spawn farther away, and if we're moving slow, it'll spawn closer. Next up is the sound. I do have the sound repeating of a player breath, and then I change the tone, the pitch of it to make it a little darker. And then finally, you'll notice if I move around, it actually sort of looks at us. And that is what we'll be coding in today's episode. Let's go ahead, turn the sound off, and get into our IDE. All right, now in the IDE, you'll see that I have a bunch of classes already created for y'all. And let me go ahead, zoom in. So my project is called Halloween. I'm coding this in 1.16.3. And the Halloween is our main class. I also have a handler created, a scary handler, which is really just how our plugin's gonna run. There's nothing in any of these classes so far, just so you know. But in the scary handler is really what's gonna have a runnable and make our Herobrine spawn. The next two classes are inside our models package. We have a Herobrine, which would be our NPC, and then we have the PacketSender, which will send the packets so that Herobrine actually spawns, gets removed, and actually updates its location. If you didn't know, NPCs are spawned through packets, and they're quite different from actual entities. I have a full 4 or 5 episodes about NPCs that y'all can go ahead and check out if you're new to it, because I am going to be moving a little bit quicker, because there's a lot of code that we have to go through. And then finally, we have the plugin.yml that, like I said, is nothing special, just has our main location, the name, the version, the author, and the API version of 1.16. All right, so let's go into our Herobrine class. And before we can actually go ahead into the main code, we need to create some variables. We're gonna have a private final player that I'm gonna call player. This is gonna be the player that's getting haunted. And then we're gonna have a private world called world, and then a private entity player called NPC. Go ahead and import all of that, and make sure you're using the regular imports for world and player. I'll show you guys the import after we're done with the class. But once we have those variables created, we need to have a constructor. So a public Herobrine, pass in a player, and we can set this dot player equal to player. We're setting this player right here equal to the one we're passing in. And then this dot world equal to player.getWorld. Next up, let's go ahead and create some getter and setters. If you are in Eclipse or IntelliJ, you can just hover over the variable itself and create some getter and setters like this. It'll save us a little bit of time. So how this Herobrine actually works is when we create an instance of this class, we're gonna generate our NPC. Then that generate method is gonna store our NPC right here so that we're able to just say get NPC later on. So what I mean by this is we have a method in here that's a private void called generate NPC. And like I said, we're gonna run this in our constructor. So this way it runs only one time. We don't have to worry about it getting messed up. It runs one time, it creates our NPC, and we don't have to worry about any loading things later on because it creates it and then just sets it as a variable. So inside our generate NPC, like I said, I have videos that go a little more in depth, but how to create NPC, you need to pass in 4 different things. We need to have a Minecraft server called server, set that equal to a cast of a craft server, and then inside between those 2 parentheses right there, say bucket get server. Go outside all the parentheses and say dot get server again. Go ahead and import all of that, and like I said, this right here will all be NMS. We're about to do right here. Then we'll have a world server. You should be familiar with this by now. World server that I'm gonna call world, set that equal to a cast of a craft world, and we'll say get world dot get handle. We're able to use this get world method because we did create it right there. Finally, we need to have our game profile called profile, and I'm going to set this equal to something, but I'm not going to do it quite yet. We'll handle that in a few seconds. Let's go ahead and create our NPC. So entity player NPC equals a new entity player, and like I said, we need to pass in 4 different things here. We need to pass in our server, our world, our profile, and a new player interact manager, and then you need to pass in the world for that manager. Go ahead and import that manager, and we will get this little red underline for profile. That's because we haven't initialized it yet. Like I said, we'll do that in a few seconds. Before we do that, let's move down a few lines and we'll say NPC dot. And just like a normal entity, we're able to do so much with this NPC. Y'all can go ahead and check out my other videos to see what else you can do with it, like setting a name, setting, its health, blah, 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 all this other stuff. What we're gonna do though is just set custom name visible to false. We don't want to display its name. That's kind of like a personal thing. How I want my Herobrine to work. I don't want it to have a name. I just want it to spawn there. And then we're going to say set NPC to NPC. Like I said, this generate method is going to create our NPC and then set it to this variable. Just like that, our NPC is created. But we do need to create that profile. So if you're new to NPCs, what a profile is, it's basically the entity's UUID, the entity's name, and the entity's skin. If you don't know how skins work, they work off of 2 different values. They work off a texture and a signature, and it's kind of difficult to get a skin. I have a video about how to do it. However, there is a much easier and an amazing way to go about this. All the links to everything will be in the description below, but there is this website called Mindskin that is so beautiful. Absolutely love this website. This website lets you generate the skin texture and signatures of custom skins. So you don't need to look on the namemc.org for a Herobrine skin and then get that player's name and pass it in. No, we can go ahead, press select file, find my Herobrine skin, open it. There it is right there. We can set a name if we want. We can change its model. I can even set it as public or private. I'm gonna set it as public for you guys. And we press generate. It'll take a few seconds, but as you can see, it generates our texture data and signature for us. So awesome. And it's not even the best part. before I get to the best part, let's go back into our IDE and let's create a method called private, and it's gonna return a game profile, and I'm gonna call it getSkin. And inside here is what we're gonna set our profile to. So our profile equals getSkin. But inside this getSkin method is, I absolutely love this so much. We're gonna scroll down and we see, oh, here's our give command. So I can copy this give command. I'm gonna keep scrolling down. Oh, there's our Java code. And if you keep scrolling down, you see some citizens skin command. It's also a really nice thing to have. But right here, it already provides us the Java code for our skin. So we don't actually need to copy any of this stuff in here. We just go down here and press copy, go into our IDE and paste it, add in one more line. And the lines that say return, and we're just going to return this skin. Go ahead and import everything, and the import for this is com.mojang.authLib property. And just like that, we have our Herobrine skin set. And this website right here is created by Intensive Talent. Go ahead and check it out. Also, Intensive Talent has a bunch of different useful tools. Go ahead and check out their GitHub. You can see all the different tools that they have. Also, a really nice thing is you can go to the gallery here and you're able to look through all the different skins. You can search and find a skin that you can use. I love this so much just because the old way of doing it is passing in a player's name, and that player can change their skin at any time and mess up your whole plugin. So this right here is a really nice thing to have for us. All right. So just like that, our Herobrine is created. It has a custom skin. However, we do need one more method that we're going to use later on, and this is going to be the spawning method. So a public void spawn, and whenever we call upon this method, it's going to spawn our entity at a certain location. Like I said, this location is dependent on the player's location. So create a location. And then we'll have a double that I'm gonna call distance. I'm gonna set it to 1.5. So I did play around this a little bit. 1.5 blocks away from you is a pretty good distance if the player is walking. However, if the player is sprinting, then we need to make that distance a little bit bigger. So I set it to 5.5. So this is just blocks. This is how far away the entity is gonna spawn from our player. So when they're walking, it's going to spawn 1.5 blocks away. When they're running, 5.5 blocks away. Now, this really isn't, I wouldn't say it's the best way of doing it. I would actually probably take the distance and then multiply it by the player's speed or something like that. Not exactly the player's speed, but the player's speed divided by 10. Just so that if they are running at speed 10 or flying at speed 10, we can still slow them down and spawn that Herobrine in front of them. Because if they are moving really fast, it can get a little junky, but y'all can go ahead and mess around with that and make it a little better. Next up, we need to spawn it in front of us, which is kind of an annoying thing to do. So the way I'm gonna go about doing it is say if player.getFacing equals blockface.north. So if they're facing north, I want to set the loc.setZ to loc.getZ. I'm going to minus the distance. So whenever the player is facing north, that means they're walking north. And when they're walking north, their Z is decreasing every single time they walk north. So I want to spawn the NPC in front of them. So I'm going to slow them down and spawn the NPC 1.5 blocks in front of them, or 5.5 blocks in front of them. Go ahead and copy this if statement because we are going to use it 3 more times. Change the north to south. Change this minus to a plus. And then, yep, plus Z, yep. And then change this third north to a west. And we need to change, we'll keep it a minus, but instead of Z, we need to make it X. So set this X, get X. And then you can probably guess what this is going to be. This is going to be east. This is going to be a plus. And this is going to be an X. So I really think this is a pretty nice thing to have saved somewhere, just so you don't forget that when they're moving north, it's minus to the z, south plus the z, west minus the x, east plus the x. Now I would say this isn't like exact. If they are moving northwest, whatever, it's a little different. You're gonna affect both of them, but this is good enough. I don't want Herobrine to spawn directly in front of the player every single time. I want it to make it look kind of natural and kind of random every single time. It could spawn to the left of him, it could spawn to the right of him, but as long as it's in front of him to where he can see him, that would be fine. Once we set that location, we can go ahead and say loc.setDirection to loc.getDirection.multiply by -1. And then finally say get npc.setLocation to loc.getX, loc.getY, loc.getZ, loc.getYaw, I think, yeah. Get yaw, and loc.getPitch. All right, so that's gonna set our location for the NPC. And this right here, this multiplying by -1 is gonna turn around our yaw and pitch so that it's looking, so the NPC is looking at us instead of looking the same direction as us. And just like that, our Herobrine class is done. Whew, 17 minutes in, and we only did one class, so it's hard to pick up the pace here. This is gonna be another kind of long class to do. This is our PacketSender. This is really how our entity is sent and handled. So I'm gonna create a private final player, a private final entity, player NPC, and then a constructor called PacketSender. Pass in our player, pass in our entity player NPC, and we'll set this dot player equal to player and this dot NPC equal to NPC. Go ahead and import all of that. Once we have that created, we are going to need to have some getter and setters in here. So let's go ahead, create our getters. And then once our getters are created, we can go ahead and create the actual methods that matter. So we need 3 different methods in here. We need a public void send method. That's going to send our packet. We need a public void remove. This is going to remove our packet, and a public void update. Oh my god, I can't type update. That's going to have we're going to pass in a location here. Location, loc. And that's going to update our packet for us. Alright, so like I said, I do have a video where I go more in depth about this. So I'm just going to go through it real quick and try to finish this within 5 minutes, hopefully. But to handle packets, we need to actually create a player connection here. Like I said, our packet is only being sent to one player. If y'all wanted to, instead of get player, we can loop through the entire server and get every single player and then send that packet to them. That's how I usually go about doing it. However, I kind of want to make it look like it's only being sent to one player. This way they have like some sort of scary effect that only that player can see it. All right, so we have a player connection, craft player, Y. Oh, I have a dot there. Go to the dot. Craft player, import craft player. There we go. So we have that connection. I'm gonna copy this line because we're going to use it later on. And then once we have that connection, we need to send those packets. So we're going to send 3 different packets here. We're going to send a packet called playout player info, and this is going to add our NPC packet playout player info again, and it's dot enum. I'll move this down a line for y'all. There we go. After you type in that, we need to do the add player and then comma get NPC. Oof, okay, so once we have sent that packet, we actually need to spawn in our NPC. So this adds the NPC to the server. We actually need to spawn it in with connection dot send packet new packet play out name entity spawn get NPC. Go ahead, import that, and that's going to spawn in our NPC to the world. And then finally, we need to send a packet called new packet play out entity head rotation. Rotation. And that's going to have a get NPC in there, as well as, I'm going to move down a line. We need to send some byte data. And I'll explain this in a second. Actually, I can explain it right now. So what this really does is it's gonna fix our head rotation for the NPC, because it can get a little messed up when we do spawn it in. So we want to make sure that we fix it so that it actually is looking like a real player. So I'm gonna get the yaw. I'm gonna times that by 256 divided by 360. Go ahead, import that, and just like that, our NPC is spawned into the world. So we spawn the NPC. We also need to remove the NPC. And I'm actually going to copy this again, because I'm going to copy this packet right here. When we remove the NPC, instead of adding the player, we are going to remove the player. Once we remove that, we actually need to delete the packet to actually destroy the entity itself. So send packet, new packet, play out entity, destroy get NPC dot get ID NPC, and there we go. Just like that, we removed our NPC from the server. And then finally, we need to update our NPC. I'm going to copy this connection again, so we will need a connection in there, but we also need to have a loc.set direction to loc.get direction dot multiply by -1. So we are going to multiply -1 to reverse the yaw and pitch, and then we're going to say connection dot send packet new packet play out entity head rotation. It's the same thing we did before. Get NPC, and it's literally the same exact code. Byte. What is it? Loc.get yaw, and we're going to times that by 256 divided by 360. Move this down the line. Play out. There we go. So it's the same as before. Instead of get NPC, we're saying loc.get yaw. So we're getting that location, and we're changing the head rotation for it. And then finally, we need to say connection.send packet new packet play out entity dot packet. I think it's look. Yeah, it's look. And then get NPC dot get ID. And then we're gonna go. We're passing in the ID, but once again, we need to pass in some byte data. It's byte. Another parentheses loc.get yaw, times that by 256 divided by 360. Go ahead and import that. And yep, we need to pass in another comma, another byte data. And this is the pitch. So we affected the yaw, now we need to affect the pitch. And it's the same exact thing, 256 divided by 360. And then finally, we need to pass in a value of true. I don't think I ever went over how to make the NPC look at you. So I guess this is it right now for you guys. I'll probably make another video about it. But this right here, this update, we're gonna run this every single tick, and it's gonna update our NPC's head rotation. So it's gonna continue to look at us. It's not just gonna stand there and look dull. It's gonna look at us. It's gonna add that another scary effect to it. But just like that, our packet sender is done. Send, remove, update. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and pause it. You can go ahead and pause the video right here if you want to make sure you have all the parentheses right, because this can get a little bit difficult with all the parentheses. But this is our packet sender class. All right, y'all. I'm actually going to end the video here. This is a really good place to take a break and the video continue in the part 2 that I'll also release, today. So y'all go ahead and check that out. Please like, subscribe, and go ahead and join the Discord if you need help with further projects or some of my tutorials. We do have an awesome community here with plenty of coding help channels, as well as you can go ahead and showcase your plugins, suggest video topics, and more. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all later.